Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Friday edition of the Advanced Markets Training with Finline Financial. I'm CEO of the company, and today what we're going to do is we're going to break down a comparison of an illustration that I received from a client, and then also kind of compare to how I was able to save this client by going through the process. And really what this stemmed from, guys, I talked about this yesterday on the wake-up call, was I was always in awe when, I'd hear of someone, whenever I was a new agent, and I would hear someone talk about, well, yeah, I asked them to send me an illustration and then I just blew it apart, right? And I always wondered, man, how do you do that? Like, what do you do? Where do you start? What does it look like, right? So let me give you guys some backstory. So I had a client last week, and we did a $340,000 annuity application with the Power Accumulator 10 on F&G. Now, we spoke, we created the expectations of what's going to happen. Hey, we've got a long holiday weekend. On Tuesday, I'll call you. We'll touch base again. And at that point, we'll do the 1035 exchange, which is what you sign to roll over the funds. And we're good to go. Awesome. Actually, he lives close to me. And every now and again, when I feel led, and I think it might be useful, I'll say like, hey, listen, you're close. By the way, you might not need it, but sometimes people, hey, Mario, I'd like to shake your hand, break bread with you, grab a cup of coffee. I can always do that. So whatever I need to do to help you to feel comfortable and confident, just let me know, right? So it was great, right? So Tuesday, I sent him the text like, hey, looking forward to meeting with you today at such and such. And he responds, hey, sorry to let you know, I've gone with a different company. Okay. What? Where the heck did that come from? So I was able to kind of offer, some thoughts to him, and he said, "Hey, Mario, it's nothing personal, right? I like you. You're really sharp. You're good at what you do. So is this other guy. It's really just about the product." I said, "Well, if it's not personal, it's just about the product. Would you give me the opportunity to take a look at it and see if it really is the best product for you? And if it is, if it beats what I put in front of you, then hey, hats off to you. You've got a better product, and this agent put something better in front of you. If it's not, then it'll be easy to see." So let me go ahead and kind of give you a little bit more backstory. So during our conversation, we identified that the client's fixed costs, right, his fixed overhead expenses are about $1,500 a month. Okay. By the way, how many of you guys would like a fixed $1,500 a month overhead? Okay. So $1,500 a month overhead. Okay, so that's how much we have to cover, basically, for him to be able to live. Now, aside from that, in retirement, which is I'd say about 6 months away, he's going to be retiring. When he goes into retirement, he's going to get a $2,600 Social Security check. His wife will get a $1,300 Social Security check, and he's going to get a $1,600 pension. So that comes out to $5,500. So his overhead without a fixed index annuity is $1,500, and he's got $5,500 guaranteed income coming in. So we didn't go with a guaranteed income rider, because a guaranteed income rider has a fee associated with it. And it's my belief that if you don't need guaranteed income, right, then there's no need to get a rider and just pay a fee, right, that you don't necessarily need. So that's why we went with the Power Accumulator. By the way, I did put a product in front of him. Hey, Karina, good to see you. Well, good to see that you're on, but your camera's not on. I did get a guaranteed income product in front of him. Oh, I wasn't calling you out. Kind of was, but good to see you anyways. Your hair always looks amazing. So
Thank you.
so I wanted to show him a guaranteed income rider, as well as the Power Accumulator. He decided to go with the Power Accumulator, so we did the app. So here we are. So when I get back to him, I started off my conversation by saying a couple of things, and I was very intentional. Remember, this is a client who's done an application with me and has decided to go in a different direction. So he's in a place where I'm potentially have lost him, and I'm trying to save him. So I started out by saying, hey, just so that we're on the same page, where did you get the idea, thought, or need to have a guaranteed income rider? Where did that come from? And before you answer, okay, According to our conversation, you had a $1,500 fixed overhead cost, and in retirement, you're going to have $5,500 of guaranteed income. And the reason this is so important is because a guaranteed income costs you an annual compounding fee. So if we can avoid that fee, it's in your best interest. And he said, okay. I said, so how do we determine whether or not we can avoid this particular fee? So as a rule, guys, most fixed index annuities or FIAs give you access to about 10% of your account value every year without any charges or fees. So in your case, based on the numbers I showed you, sir, you would have more than enough money available in that 10% to not need a guaranteed income rider. And so these are literally, guys, let me show you, like, these are literally the notes that I had, and I'm literally reading the script that I drew out for him. Okay. Even so much so that it says here, show the illustration, right? You guys, this is not rocket science. So I drew this out ahead of time. So when I said that, I said, now let me go ahead and I wasn't showing him this, but I said, let me go ahead and show you the illustration. So let me go ahead and do that now for us. Okay. So this is the illustration that I had put forth in front of him. Okay. And so to illustrate the first point that I was talking about was that, hey, you've got more than enough money available inside the 10%, right? So if he were to put 304,000 in, okay, and starting at year 2 to 10, he would have 10% access of the account value. So if the account value is 397, he'd have 39,000 his first year. By the way, okay, let me show you this. The illustration that this company gave him was charging him for a guaranteed income. Well, that guaranteed income year 1 was $24,000. So I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to pay a guaranteed income rider fee for a smaller income amount? Like, how does that make sense? So here's what they were illustrating to him: $24,000 a year starting at year 2, whereas what I was putting up in front of him was giving him at 39. Now, when I look at that, I go, okay, now this is based on account value. So keep in mind, number one, do we lose money ever? No. Okay. Now you might have a year where there's a 0. So in that case, because you didn't get any growth and you withdrew, that next year it would be a little less, right? So, that's where you see here it's 34. But I always do this. So when I look at the first 10 years, the lowest amount that we're looking at is about 34,000. The highest amount we're looking at is like 42.5, right? So I say 34 to 42 is still better than 24,000. Does that make sense? Now, have I lost anybody? Are we all still keeping up here? Yeah? Okay. So that was the first step, was to show him that we decided that not going with a guaranteed income rider was the best fit because you have enough money to not need the guaranteed income rider. Okay. So now let's go back to the next thing. So where the heck is it? It's many screens up. Okay. So the next thing is this. Now let's talk about the illustration that you have. The company, they're charging you 1.25% every single year, and it's compounding for this guaranteed income rider. Now, by the way, I'm not even recommending F&G's guaranteed income rider product, okay, which is the Accelerator Plus 10. But if I was, the charge for the Accelerator 10 income rider is 0.95. Now, I don't know if you know this, but 0.95 to 1.25 is 0.25%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but because it compounds, and we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years down the road, dude, that's a lot of money. That compounding percentage, that compounding 0.25% can do some damage. And when you look at his actual illustration, he runs out of money at the end of his life. And that's one of the other things that I used. So I said, this is significant because over the years, those fees compound. So I stopped it and I said, so in order to know which route you want me to continue down, I need to hear from you. Do you need a guaranteed income rider or not? Because if he did, I was going to show him the accelerator plus 10. And if he sees the wisdom in not needing it, then I just kind of double down on the power accumulator 10. And so he said, no, I guess I don't need it then. Okay. So I said, perfect. Now let's start working our way through the illustration that was provided to the client. Okay. So first thing I did was go back to the top, and he had sent it to me, which was really cool. I'm trying to not have his information show so that YouTube doesn't pull me down. But the product was with a company called Equitrust. It's called the Market 7 Annuity Index Annuity. Now, by the way, guys, sometimes this is a pain in the butt because, and I'm sure Maritza would agree on this, that you get so used to your own illustrations that sometimes it takes a good 45 minutes just to even decipher what the heck this is saying, right? Much less is it good information. So his allocation, first of all, was he was going to put 30% into the, and you could see it here. I just highlighted these. 30% into the S&P 500 index, 1 year point to point with participation index. 40% into the S&P 500 dynamic intraday one year point to point. And then 30% into the Mark 5 index 1 year point to point. So I highlighted them, right? One was here. Right now, I noticed that it says each one says a participation. It has a participation rate. Do you guys know what a participation rate is? Type it in or call it out.
Do you mean like a bonus rate?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't see where it says any bonus.
It doesn't state it anywhere, right?
Mm-mm.
So that was the first thing that came to my head. I was like, okay, so what is the bonus? It just says it has a participation rate, but what is it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a guaranteed participation rate? So just some things that I started considering and I went looking for, okay? So I highlighted all three of them. In the definition of each, it doesn't say anything, okay? So we keep on cruising. And all of this is pretty basic. This is just kind of like a glossary of different terms. So like, this is what a terminal illness rider means and is and all that. So I came here, it says, listen, an income rider, I wanted to make sure he knows there is a charge for this rider, and it's 1.25 of the accumulation value, right? And so we talked, once again, just wanted to reiterate, if you had decided that you wanted a guaranteed income, which again, I don't think we need, F&G's is 0.95. In fact, the standard rate, and this is something you should take notes on, the standard kind of average in the industry is 1.15. So not only is this above F&G, this is actually above the industry average. So it's actually a more expensive rider to begin with, okay? So then we come to here. This one here is the guaranteed, where it just kind of shows you if everything was zeros, if you never gained, by law, the Department of Insurance makes these carriers always provide a sheet in the illustration that shows the absolute worst case scenario. And the absolute worst case scenario is if they just flatline zeros all the way through, right? So if he had zeros all the way through and he was taking 24,000, he would technically run out of money at the 14-year mark, but he'd still be making income all the way to 100. Okay, that's what that is. We don't need to spend too much time there. Now, this is the one that I kind of dialed in on. Okay, so first and foremost, this one is telling us that this is based on the non-guaranteed rates, right? Which is the actual production of those indexes. Now, before I got to this one, I actually went and we dialed into the actual rates. So for instance, I found here the S&P 500 1 year point to point, they actually have the participation rate. It's 45%. F&G's is 255. And there's no guarantee on this bonus, okay? The F&G product that I recommended for him, okay, has a guarantee of 100% bonus for the lifetime of the contract. Get down and show it to you guys. See, the participation rate will never be less than 100% for this option. Okay. So right then and there, I'm like, okay, first of all, he's putting you 30% of your money into this particular index. Okay. They're only guaranteeing you they're giving you a 45% initial participation rate, and there's no guarantee on it. F&G is giving you 255%, and they're giving you a guarantee. Okay. So this one here was a 70% participation rate. And then this one here was a 190% participation rate, which is a lot better. Okay. So then I said, okay, let's take a look at the actual indexes themselves. So 30% of his funds, you can see I put this here, 30% of your funds, the best 10 years are 6.8, worst 10 years are 4.58, and the most recent years are 6.04. Okay. Now, 40% of your funds are on this one. Okay. Best 10 years, and the dates are there, 11.7. Worst 10 years, okay, by the way, this is around the same worst 10 years that F&G shows, was 7.61, and the most recent 10 years was 9.47. And then 30% of the rest is on this one here, where best 10 years was 11.3, worst 10 years is 7.93, and the most recent 10 years was 8.62. So here's what I did when I said, okay, but they always show the average of all three combined. So when you look at, if we start on the right, the most recent 10-year period, all three of those indexes averaged together performed at 8.27. F&G's was at 13.05. Okay. All the way to the left, the absolute best 10 years over the last 20 that all three of those indexes combined did was 10.32. F&G's was 16.93. Okay. And then the worst 10 years was in that 07 to 13 range where 2008 crash was. This did 6.8, F&G did 9.26. So if you just compare the allocations, okay, that he gave you and the indexes that he's trying to grow your money on, all across the board, F&G kicks their butt. So he was like, wow, that's crazy. Okay. So now with that being said, let's look at the actual illustration that they provided you, because to be brutally honest, I think it's garbage. Here it is. So he rolls it in at 304, and starting at year 2, starts taking 24,000. Okay. Now what happens is, notice this, guys, at year 83, okay, 20 years later, he's still getting his 24,000, but his account value is now 190,000. His death benefit is 190,000. Okay. So I pretty much said, because look at, and then it's weird. They don't even illustrate 83 to 93. They just show you, and 10 years later, it's only worth 15,000. And then at 100, there's nothing left. So these are some notes. I said, you will run out of your actual accumulation value around age 83. I also put here, what the heck happens to your funds between 83 and 93, right? And then your decreasing death benefit, okay, means that you're decreasing legacy for your loved ones. So if you choose this route, okay, his question to me was, well, Mario, why is it running out of money? Good question. Number one, your money's not growing enough. You're taking too much from it, and that stupid fee is eating it alive. So if you have a little snowball and it's okay, how much can I take off this snowball? Well, I want to take $24,000 a year. It's a simple calculation. Okay, in order for you to take $24,000 a year and this not run out, you have to grow at this percent. He's not growing at that percent, first of all, or even if he is, then they threw another added little, wrench in the thing here, because they also added a compounding 1.25%. So in that equation, your snowball is not growing enough to withstand a $24,000 a year withdrawal plus the rider. But then somebody would say, well, Mario, it doesn't matter because he really wants to pay for the income. But when I asked him, I said, do you care that when you pass away, you have something to leave to your wife or any of your kids? He's like, yeah, I do. That ain't gonna happen here because you're running out of money. So time out. Have I lost any of you guys yet? Are you guys keeping up on this? What questions do you guys have? I'm going to pull a page out of Maritza because she always goes, so if I made you do it right now, you'd have no questions?
I really
Is that
like
Isabel?
how you really dissected and analyzed this entire illustration. I mean, when you were asking about the participation rate, because that's something that when I'm illustrating an annuity to a client, that's one of the main things that I focus on, because that's one of the sellers, you know, and I know that F&G can have really high bonus participation rates. And looking at the illustration here, it's obvious like that they weren't really illustrating what it was. So the fact that
Yeah,
you
I had to find
analyzed
it.
and dissected this very, very thoroughly.
I had to find it because as soon as I saw it at the top, just like you, I was like, well, what's the rate? Like, where's it at? You know, because you're right, guys. The participation bonus is everything. It is like the X factor, right? Because what you're doing is you're growing your money based on the return on the index. So if the index does 3%, 5%, 10%, then you multiply it by the participation bonus. And that multiplier is what is just game changer. Okay, so very important.
Mario, really, I have a quick something to say
Yes,
really quick. So I
go
know
for it.
F&G has this, not like a, I don't know a product this specifically of this client of this other company they use, but I do know F&G does offer something similar where it's like it depends on what income. So you know they have the
Yeah,
3 options, right? So I mean, I'm saying this is terrible for this guy. I'm like, because he's not that old. He's 64. I'm
he's not
like,
old at
why would
all.
they? Yeah, not at all. Like he has time. So the fact that they put him in this, I feel like they put him in that one that when the guy rolls it over at 75, then they want the guaranteed income because they don't have that much accumulated yet. And I'm just like, this is tripping me
Yeah,
out. That's all I
you're
gotta say.
bringing up a good point. Okay, so there's two types of guaranteed income products. Okay, the first type is where it's very transactional. It's almost like I'm writing a check. Hey, I got 500 grand. How much would this buy me in an income forever? Okay, and that is the the performance plus. Oh no, the safe advantage. That's the safe advantage. Okay, it's transactional. It's like, hey, here's a check for 500. Give me that income forever. And in that transactional type, the accumulation value means nothing anymore. Okay. The second type of way you can get a guaranteed income rider is with a accelerator plus 10, where you are going to pay a fee and get a guaranteed income when you want it. So you let it go as long as possible. It starts getting bigger. But once you flip that switch, the guaranteed income is calculated and it's locked. But you don't lose your accumulation value. And that's important because of a death benefit, right? So sometimes the first, which is transactional, that guaranteed income is higher. They give you a little bit of a higher guaranteed income because you're basically saying, I don't care about my accumulation value anymore. So because you're giving away the accumulation value, they give you a little bit of a higher guaranteed income. But if you go with the accelerator plus 10, they'll give you a guaranteed income. It won't be as high as the other one, but you still have the account value, right? Which is what he wants. Because he's like, no, I don't want to leave nothing to my family. Like, you know, so yeah, good. Thank you for chiming in because that's exactly what you're talking about, right? So we went through all of this. I kind of came down to the bottom here. The rest of this was just some fees and just nonsense. So here's how I stopped it with him, right? This particular part of the of my Word doc, I actually showed him, and he actually was like, sir, can you send that to me? I was like, yes, sir. I created this little simple Word doc, okay? And I just compared apples to apples. So start at the top, F&G, Equitrust, right? So no fees. Your fee's 1.25 guaranteed income rider fee. And it compounds. Then here's something that I just thought of. I was like, all right, so at 65, his income would be 39,000. Okay. 761. At 65 here, it'd be 24,000. At 83, it'd be 40,000 a year. At 83, it'd be 24,000 a year. At 83, his account value would be 371,000. His account value here would be 190. Death benefit would be the same. So then I said, now let's take a look at the participation bonuses. So the participation bonus that F&G is giving you right now is 255 with a guarantee of 100%. That means no matter what happens, if there is a positive rate of return, you're going to get at least 100% bonus on that. Okay. Right now, they've got you in one that's giving you 45, 70, and 190, and it doesn't have a guaranteed participation bonus. So it could be zero. They could literally take it away. And then your allocations, the most recent 10 years was 13.05. The most recent 10 years is 8.27. Worst 10 years, and I put here with the crash during that year, 9.26. Same time frame, 6.88. Best 10, 16.93. Best 10, 10.32. He asked me for the for this little screenshot. I screenshot it on my computer, cropped it up, sent it to him in the email, and he said, all right, I guess I got to call the other guy and tell him that I'm not going with him. So I even coached him through that. And I said, listen, I know this other guy, he can sell you F&G. I went here a little bit, so it's a little shameless, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. I said, you're from Texas. We do things different around here. I said, so and the other guy's from Pennsylvania, right? Nobody likes that. So I said, if he tries to say, it's okay, I'll do the F&G one for you. I said, you're going to go with the Texan, right? Because I showed it to you first. And he said, yeah, I'll stay with you. And I said, cool. So I'm not a truth. Who said that? Is it nobody knows anything about that. What are you talking about? And so I called him yesterday, and I even told him, I said, hey man, look, I know this is an awkward conversation to have, but I just want you to know that you don't owe this to anybody, including me. I'm thankful that you gave me the opportunity, but you do what's right for you and your family. So he's like, all right, cool. I have a call with him today, which was yesterday. When I said, cool, I'll call you after. Actually, I was on with Nicole, and he jumped on my Zoom. So he actually jumped on proactively, which is a good sign. And when I got on, I said, hey, how did your meeting go? He goes, I didn't have it. I just sent him an email. I was like, let's go. So he was like, yeah, I already talked to Fidelity. They're putting my money, selling off my money from my stocks into a cash account. And then I'm going to send it through. So hopefully Monday or Tuesday, you'll have the money. So guys, I'll tell you, this was an awesome exercise to go through. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We'll go through some conversations and then go over any questions or whatnot, and we'll be done.